Check. Test. Oh, so let me,
1st and 10.
Custer County Board of County Commissioners meeting will come to order. Let the record show that today is June 29th, 2020. The time is 9:00 a.m. Wonder if I could impose upon our attorney, Clint Smith, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Madam Clerk to the Board, would you conduct a roll call, please?
Commissioner Flower,
Present.
Commissioner Kanda,
Here.
Commissioner Prince,
Here.
Attorney Clint Smith,
present.
and Clerk to the Board Kelly Camper present.
Thank you. Audience introductions.
Sarah Evans, BOCC admin assist.
And anyone on the phone?
Yes.
Tracy Howard.
Say again, please.
Ing Munden, High Altitude Garden Club.
Tracy Ballard, I think, said her name.
Barbara Mullen, High Altitude Garden Club.
Okay, go ahead.
So is John Genovese all aboard Westcliff?
Kelly had a question.
I've got two people with the garden club. Could you say your names again?
Ing Munden,
Okay, and the second one?
Barbara Mullen.
Thank you. And John Genovese?
John Genovese representing all aboard Westcliff.
Okay. Anyone else care to introduce themselves? Mr. Roth, how many do we have on the call?
Sir, we have 6 other people on the call.
Okay, we'll allow those to introduce themselves. Go ahead.
Cindy Flower.
Thank you.
Jane, come here.
Say again, please.
Elaine Chavanon.
Thank you.
Come on, Dana.
So we should have 3 or 4 more to introduce themselves. Vern, do you have a record or just phone numbers?
I just have phone numbers. I see Cindy up there and 1, 2, 3, 4 others, or 5 others rather, so I think everybody's introduced themselves.
Okay. All right, we'll move on. Thank you. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Amendments to the agenda, gentlemen?
None from me.
I have none, sir.
Nor do I. Approval of the minutes. I don't believe we have any to approve this morning.
Are those you sent in draft, or is that something else, Kelly?
That was Board of Health.
Oh, I didn't say it just says.
Those were
minutes.
Board of Health,
I
and
haven't
then
opened it yet.
I think you had sent some that had already been approved.
Yep.
Yep. Commissioner items. Commissioner Prince, would you like to begin?
Thank you, sir. Since our last meeting on the 17th, I attended the Board of Health meeting. On the 17th was the pre-water.
In the mic, sir.
Sorry.
Please.
Sorry. On the 17th, I also attended the pre-water line meeting. On the 23rd, the CES meeting. On the 23rd, the recovery meeting. Upper Arkansas Area Council of Government was on the 24th. Attainable Housing on the 25th. And then Board of Health again on the 26th. If I may, I'd like to report on a conversation I had with Newell, who is a member of the school board.
Okay.
I spoke to him on my way in this morning. They are under the gun to decide whether they want to handle this community grant that the school will receive. He informed me that there was a component of the county involved in that. I was unaware of that. We did not hear that from our report on Friday. My understanding is the county may be the fiscal agent and handle the money on that, but I'm not certain. He was not certain. But he did say that there was a component for the public health nurse or the public health agency.
Hold on. Can you silence your phones, please?
Somebody needs to mute their phone in phone land there.
Thank you. So just to continue on, so the deadline is July 1st. He said,
If you've called in on the telephone, we'd ask that you mute your cell phone or your phone line, please. Vernon, would you mute everybody?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So he asked me, their deadline is July 1st. So, and they've had it for
Line muted.
since the beginning of June. I think he told me June 9th. I'm not positive. But why this comes to us today, when it's due in 2 days, I was a little miffed. But that's
Line
besides
unmuted.
the point. He asked me what the commissioners would do, and I told him, of course, that I have no way of knowing what the commissioners would vote on. I am not the county commissioners. I told him that I felt that it's likely the commissioners, if it's a pass-through, where we would receive the funds and then issue it to them. We've done that before. I suspected that the commissioners, once they have facts, will be able to make a decision. But at this point, we're not in a position to do that. So he said, well, what should I report to my meeting this morning? And I told him I would say that the commissioners were distressed that this was, the information we had at the time, that this was denied. The question was asked of our public health nurse, can we take it over as the county as opposed to the school? So I told him that we were very interested in having this done. This sounds like a wonderful thing. It's opioid bullying, social graces, and just all kinds of wonderful stuff that the kids could do. So for the students, it also will help with the Amish community, those homeschool folks and others. So I told him that I cannot speak for the county commissioners, but I would certainly say in your meeting that he spoke to me and that we would certainly be willing to entertain that. And likely, unless there's some financial component or something that we're not knowing, it's likely we'd approve it, but I cannot say anything. So that's my report on that this morning. I'm distressed because they have to have an approval from us by before they turn it in on the July 1st, which means either we have a consensus approval this morning without a vote since it's not on the agenda, or we hold a special meeting, or we just deny being part of this due to lack of understanding of what this is and how it works. So that's kind of where we stand.
Okay. Anything else, sir?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Kanda?
Yeah, I got a few things.
We're lacking social distancing over there.
Yeah, if you don't. Good morning. Hold on just a second, Bill, if you don't mind. So, your name, sir?
Charlie Ellison.
Oh, Charlie. Sorry.
Got a new beard.
Sunglasses and mask and beard, yeah. Would you mind sitting right out there in the hallway where you can see and hear?
I'm here for Shannon's piece,
Oh, okay.
which is at the end.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Take the chair if you want.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and actually, I may have to ask you to do the same thing. Yeah. We're not, this meeting wasn't open to the public.
Sorry.
That's okay. No.
I knew I
No, we did not, and it's not on the agenda, so I don't know.
Since August and just told us about it.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay.
Doreen.
Sorry for the interruption, Commissioner Kanda. Go ahead.
Okay, similar things. Board of Health, a couple of those meetings, of course. Met with the airport board on that AWAS grant. We did get the funding squared out and how we receive that money and be reimbursed. We've been reimbursed the first tranche we had for a little over $12,000. Have a $5,000 invoice pending that they had included on their budget year calculations so that we can get that paid immediately when they invoice us. For that was to be completed through 30 June. Also, we discussed the taxi lane. I've got with Gary Hyde as well, so that they can scrape that out, get that ready to put some road base on and oil at some point that they've got planned. And then the concrete, we had a discussion with the fire department out there on the plan. They're working together on getting some estimates and figuring out when and how to fix that.
So that hasn't been fixed yet?
Not
huh?
fixed
The
yet,
damaged
but it's
concrete?
no.
Oh, I
It's
thought it had been.
no. They had started on the process, and then all this stuff happened. So it's back on the calendars. So we'll know, and they want to try to get it fixed before the picnic that they're trying to plan soon. And they've got the fire trucks off the area where it's bad. So they're going to station. They're going to coordinate it so they get the truck out of the barn when they get ready to build it. All right, had a good talk also with CenturyLink on the fiber program. They're working as a partner with the program, both being the towers and the fiber program that we have with the county to towns as well. And so that's good, very good. They've sent a letter out to all the users and intend as part of that program to connect the Wetmore phone lines that were damaged in the flood a couple of years ago. Also, as you know, you all were attending the Saddle Club Water Project, and Tom, you're going to give us an update on that, I'll bet. So I'm not going to say any more about that. And finally, I did have a talk with the Board of Education president, Troy Baumgartner, who helped on that grant. And the bottom line I got out of it was they're going to try to straighten out all the information flow problems and what the actual facts are today in the meeting that I wish we could attend. And I think that meeting is at 10, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Okay. So we'll find more of the facts and how we can support it. If it sounds like a good thing to support, if it's the right thing to do. And I think that brings me up to speed.
Okay, thank you. I'll just report quickly. I have a phone call this afternoon with Nate Eckloffs to discuss from Piper Sandler, I'm sorry, to discuss moving forward with the Justice Center project. So he has been reaching out and just wanted to touch base with us. So I said I would have a conversation with him this afternoon. Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I did fail to mention from a commissioner point of view, our task force is working well, the Economic Recovery Task Force, and I did get a hold of Charles Bogle, and they're going to assist us in our request as the Board of Health to understand the businesses, where they stand, and if there are other needs, so we can have a meeting as soon as the order from the state comes down and we understand what modifications we might like or change or whatever that we got forward on the Board of Health point of view. So I'll let you know about that as soon as I'll send you an email on the progress.
Okay, thank you. Let me go through my calendar and then I'll get back to my other notes. Sorry. June 22nd, I participated in a CCI Mountain District counties meeting. It was a Zoom conference, lasted a couple hours. It was an interesting meeting, 13 counties in the Mountain District of Colorado. I think 11 of the 13 counties were on the call. So the primary purpose of that call was to discuss economic recovery status of each of the counties, the impact of coronavirus and that kind of thing. So it's kind of eye-opening. We certainly have not, by comparison, been impacted to the extent of a lot of counties that rely heavily on the tourism industry. And really, we continue to be kind of in the forefront of counties that have not had a significant number of positive cases and obviously deaths. So felt good about that. It was just disconcerting to listen to some of the other counties and the things they're going through. It's just amazing when they rely so heavily on the tourism industry, and that basically was shut down completely in those counties. It was just brutal, the impact on them. So not to diminish the impact on our own county, but certainly does not compare to some of those counties on the I-70 corridor and that kind of thing. And then, of course, Economic Recovery Task Force meeting. And then also participated in the CES teleconference meeting on the 22nd. Also attended the Water Project pre-construction meeting. Custer County Site Selection Services status meeting on the 24th. And then on the 24th and 25th, I assisted with that water line project. It's progressing. We started at 4th and Main and went down through the county shop yard, and they're about 3/4 the way across the county shop yard, and they're digging up to the fairgrounds today. So I'll check on that project this afternoon when we're done here. It's gone pretty well. We had some issues with some utilities, both of which were not located. We located them fairly quickly, but anyway, we got those repaired and then kept moving. So, and then let me finish, and then I'll come back to that because I've got another question for you. And then on the 26th, attended the Board of Health meeting, as did you gentlemen. So, one of the things I wanted to talk about was we had committed to spend up to $30,000 on this water line project. It's not going to take that much money. The fire department has committed $10,000 to go towards that project. We're at, right now, our share, the county share, if the county and the Saddle Club split the remaining balance of that, and none of this is set in stone. A lot of this discussion happened before we ever knew how much the material was going to be in the first place. We need to decide if we want to take the county share out of capital improvement or community outreach is really what it boils down to. Probably looking at $4,000 or so. Originally, we'd talked about the $30,000 coming out of capital improvement. If we want to take our share out of community outreach, we can do that. But we can also take it out of capital improvement. So I just wanted to throw that out, see what you thought.
You want to decide now, or?
We'd like to, because we're going to have to pay this bill. This initial invoice to Core and Main was for $16,000.
Can't we, either fund, can't we later decide to change it and reimburse the
no,
other fund?
we cannot
what's the
reimburse the community outreach.
That's
fund.
right.
So, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, my preference would be to take out of capital improvements. That's what capital improvements is for. Community outreach, we have many organizations asking us for assistance. I'd like to leave money in the outreach program, so if an organization comes and says, will you help us, we maintain that money. And I think it really appropriately should come out of capital improvements, since that's what it is.
I agree.
Okay. So by consent, then, I will visit with Miss Donna about that, and I'm sure she's probably listening, so we will earmarked our share out of capital improvement. Yep. Yeah, we've already done it. It was just really a point of clarification. We voted on taking that money out of capital improvement. So, okay, good. That's all I have for Commissioner report. Anything else, gentlemen? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. Upper Ark, I don't have anything to report for Upper Ark.
Nothing here either.
Okay. Jay, anything? We'll move on. Administrative assistant items. Anything, Ms. Kara?
Attorney items.
Oh, I'm sorry. Attorney items. I jumped the line. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I've worked with Jackie Hobby. I've written a couple of letters concerning zoning violations for her, and I've met with her and talked to her about the matter that's going to be discussed in the executive session later today in this meeting concerning a pending SUP application. And I've been working with Shannon pretty closely for the last week or 10 days because of this new Senate Bill 20-217 that goes into effect July 1, which is a nightmare for law enforcement around the state. The county attorneys and the district attorneys are scrambling to understand it and to try to inform their respective law enforcement agencies what need to be done. And Shannon is on the agenda later. I told him, he asked if he could appear in person for this. I would ask that you allow him to appear in person. We could still socially distance, and because what he wants to talk about would be really difficult to explain over the phone, I think. So if you would allow that, I told him I'd have Kara let him know.
Yeah, I believe that's fine. By consent, gentlemen.
Yeah, I'm fine as long as
We can
he
make room
stays
back
out
there.
by the water. Keeping 6 feet, I'm fine.
All right, Kara, can you let Shannon know in approximately what time you think he should be here? Thank you.
Good
Yeah,
luck
that'd
on
be
that
the-
one.
Shoot in the dark.
There's a $100 question. I would say probably 10:30, 11, somewhere in there, quarter to 11. Okay, anything else, sir?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, yep. I would ask, and I've looked briefly this morning, I didn't do a good job, Clint, about, I think we need a little clearer direction about our agenda and who sets that, who makes the determination of what's going to be on the agenda and where. I'll continue to do some research if you have some time and want to look into that a little bit too on setting the agenda. I don't have, and please take this for face value, I don't have a problem with executive sessions and so on and so forth. I'm not sure it's appropriate for the chairman to learn we're having an executive session when he gets a copy of the agenda. So that's what spurred this thought to me today. Again, I'm not opposed. I guess my question is, can anybody call the administrative assistant and get something on the agenda?
No, I think the three of you can certainly put something on the agenda, but anybody else, including me, really should request that.
That's what
Right.
I'm thinking,
Any-
but
the other
I didn't see the
commissioners.
language this morning when I was looking, so.
No, I'll take a look as well, but that would be my recommendation. Otherwise, you could get a
Exactly.
flood of requests.
Yeah, I mean, anybody then, quote unquote, could take advantage, call Kara and say, I put this on the agenda, and if she doesn't know any different, then I wouldn't blame her for putting it on the agenda. So I would say agenda items are going to have to go through the commissioners
Through me,
or,
or through, because
To
Karen.
you, I'm
to
sorry.
me.
yeah, I'm back.
You gotta get it.
Sorry. Yeah, to Kelly, not to Kara. I'm sorry. They'll probably still call Kara initially because they're not used to this changeover, but I know she'll know to refer them to you. So,
can I-
yeah,
Can I make a comment on that?
certainly.
Speak
In
loud.
the past, they have always,
Is your mic on?
in the past,
Now it is.
they have always been able to contact the clerk
Right.
and get on the agenda.
Right.
And then I send it out. As soon as Clint contacted me, I sent it out
Yeah.
to all you guys so
so-
that you
right.
were aware, so
Right.
that if something was put on there that you didn't want, because sometimes
way
it's
it
hard
should
to
be.
get a hold of you
Right.
guys, for a
Yeah.
person to get a hold of you.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. I just don't think it's appropriate and proper. I think it should come through the commissioners. If we, obviously, we get reimbursed for cell phones, we should be available 24/7. So if that's an issue, then we need to address
Well,
that.
and then,
internally.
like she says, and if we don't get this call for whatever reason, that's a good process because she makes sure that whoever's wanting on we can get a note. It doesn't have to be from the agenda item either. You just get a note to us too, or a call,
Yeah.
or that too.
Yeah, I
And
think that's,
This had been on the agenda for a while. I knew it was coming, and I spoke
what's that?
this executive session, and I spoke to Jackie Hobby, because when I saw SUP, I assumed it was that issue we have discussed a couple times in here in open session, and when I heard that was, I thought it was appropriate because I knew there was an attorney involved, so.
So it got to a
Yeah,
commissioner.
again,
It's
the
just that
reason, and
everybody
maybe
needs
we
to-
shouldn't make that decision, Kelly, this morning about that. I'm just asking if the attorney would do a little research. I'll continue to do some research. Let's decide what that process is going to be and then try to adhere to it. I understand what you're saying about people call you, they want on the agenda. Well, we'll have to talk to the commissioners and find out.
What,
I don't know.
if I can just
Go ahead.
voice my opinion on this, I feel that our inner circle, our trusted group, Clint, Kelly, Kara, and then the three of us, I think we all ought to be able to at least tell whoever they speak to, yeah, I'll put it on the agenda, but I need to run it by the commissioner, or something like that. I think we can give deference to our inner circle to make those decisions. I just don't think any, person on the street says, hey, I want to get on and talk about my road, for example, should have that right without us approving it.
And that's what has been my experience so far. Somebody will call me,
Really
and
hasn't
I'll
been a
decide
problem,
or
I
not, or pass it on.
The proper procedure is important, so I think we
That's
should discuss
where
it.
I'm at. I
I'm
mean,
with you, sir.
and then I think we need to filter what is appropriate to be on the agenda and what is appropriate to be dealt with in public comment. If
Absolutely.
somebody wants to talk about their road,
I agree.
I would
that-
think that might be a public
And that's a good
comment issue.
reason you
I
want to
agree.
amend the agenda if we didn't get that conversation beforehand, but
I
that's a
agree.
good point.
No, I think,
Yeah,
I think
or
we're
that
all
it
in
just doesn't
agreement.
belong on the agenda. So,
We don't even need to talk about it. Hey, I had a
anyway, I'm
quick
just
question.
asking for us to review the process, and again, I have my opinion about it, but I'll defer to council, and then maybe we can move forward. So I know there was somebody in here today wanting on the agenda. Well, in my personal opinion, as a commissioner, has no business being on the agenda. It should be a public comment item, but I wasn't involved in that conversation, so. From my knowledge base, the chairman and the secretary sets the agenda.
And I agree with that.
Doesn't mean that we don't have a conversation about that, but at some point, to Kelly's point, I don't know that we can all have a big, long discussion about whether John Doe needs to be dealt with as an agenda item or in public comment, so. Anything else, sir, under attorney items?
No, sir.
Administrative assistant?
I had a quick question.
Go ahead, sir.
That reminded me of, we probably, it doesn't have, don't want to solve it now, that the item on the school board, opioid piece, we need to decide how we're going to get ourselves information. And we can talk about that in public comment at the end, but we're going to, if somebody's over there taking notes or whatever, we're going to have to understand it before we can support or not.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what I told Newell that when I spoke to him. I said, you're hitting me the day before it's due, basically, and we know nothing about it other than it's out there and that you rejected it. And then he started telling me about it. I said, this is not the time to be telling us.
Right, so however we get what the results of this meeting is and the data, for us to understand it, maybe it's email or something, we need to agree on that. I don't want to argue what kind of a process we're going to get done, come up to speed.
I agree completely, Bill. My only comment to him was, and I hope I didn't overstep my bounds as a commissioner, I said to him, if there is money that's going to be available to help our children, school and out of school, opioids, bullying, social graces, I said, I think you're going to end up getting support from the commissioners, provided that there are no strings attached to the commissioners that we are not accustomed to handling. I just kind of left it at that. So,
Well, I'm assuming we'll deal with that in public comment, right?
well, I would hope so. I mean, I hope someone
Well,
speaks
yeah,
to us about
We're
it.
going to do it. We're going to have to talk here.
Well, we don't have to. I mean,
No,
don't know
but
it's
anything
not,
about
it's
we're
not
gonna,
incumbent upon us to do anything.
We haven't seen it.
That's
We know
right.
nothing.
that's right. That's my point. I'm not trying
So
to
Said
make a.
we had to do
No,
something
we
with it
have.
today.
All I asked was we need to get the information somehow. So how are we going to get the
Let
information?
me tell you what I told him exactly.
That's all
what
I
you're
care
asking,
about.
Bill. I said to him, if the school board doesn't approve it, it's done deal. If the school board approves it and we have a component, you're
Right.
incumbent upon it to give it to us and let us decide whether we're part of it or not.
In time. So that's my only issue.
In a
was,
timely
I don't-
manner.
Not,
We got
whether we
2
agree or
days.
not, it's all I'm working is we got to know. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't come up during public comment today, then
That's my point.
Right, and we've had this conversation multiple times throughout the years that these last-minute deals, when, if it's an emergency, a water line breaks somewhere, we have an emergency, we need to get on and fix it, that's one thing. But they've had this since at least June 9th, and we're just learning about it now. I mean, this is not right.
Okay, so we're sort of in public comment on the agenda. So
I'm sorry.
my point is, do we want to
off the
have
agenda.
Kara
I'm-
call the admin over there and say, get information to us after your meeting, or what are we going to do? That's all I'm suggesting that we discuss. Because to sit here knowing that it's out there and wait for them to do something, if they don't know the process here, then they lose, period.
Right.
So that's my only point, and that's easy to ask for.
that's all right. We're getting ready to move into public comment. We're not there yet, but, so, from the chair's perspective, if they want us to act on it, they need to call and request that. I haven't looked at this, and I'm not gonna look at it, because I'm busy running a meeting, so, if they want to call in, hopefully they'll be done with their meeting. They can call in and public comment or whatever. So, all right, we'll move on. Public comment, Vern, I would ask if you would unmute everybody's phones. And then after public comment, we can mute them again. Thank you.
Everyone's unmuted.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Public comment? If you'd like to visit with the commissioners about anything that's not on the agenda, you're welcome to do so. Hearing none, we'll move on. Any unfinished business, gentlemen?
This is John Genovese for All Aboard Westcliff.
Go ahead, sir.
We have a situation, like many others in the county, where we're losing all our income. We have yet to open our doors for 2020, and we do not know that we're going to be able to even do that at all this year. And we have seen requests to the county for assistance and support, and was wondering if there is a certain criteria, forms to fill, so that we can approach the county for some support.
Okay. Are you on the board of directors for the All Aboard West?
I have been recently elected the chair of All Aboard West.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
No, there's not really a hold on, maybe I'm being corrected. Go ahead, sir.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman, but we do have the $425,000 that the county has received from the CARES Act to help organizations that have been adversely impacted by the coronavirus. To the best of my knowledge, we have an interagency agreement running around between Westcliff, Silvercliff, and the county to set up a task force on how to allocate that money if it meets the criteria of the CARES Act. So I would suspect, and I don't know this, but I suspect that all aboard Westcliff would certainly qualify as a recipient of some of that money. So I didn't mean to correct you, Mr. Chairman, but I think that is available, just not at this moment.
Okay. I think Mr. Genevieve's question was, is there a form to fill out to seek additional funding from the county commissioners? Is that correct, John?
Well, I would like to know if there is a process, a form, what is the criteria that needs to be met, and because I mean we've lost all basically our income. I mean, there's not going to be a pancake breakfast on the 4th of July. There's not going to be fireworks. These are things that brought in large numbers. Our opening our doors and getting donations, our sale of merchandise, our rental, that Heritage Center, we have not been able to rent that at all because of the coronavirus. So these are things that I'm just letting you know that we're missing out of. And if there is money available like this that was just discussed, the $425,000, we would certainly like to find out what the criteria is and how we go about submitting for this.
Okay. I would suggest maybe that you draft a letter on behalf of all aboard Westcliff to the county commissioners or to the town of Westcliff. They will have equal seating at the table when we discuss how we move forward with trying to distribute some of the CARES Act money. That's on a reimbursable basis, so I would recommend that at least you draft a letter and request some help due to the coronavirus. That should get you in the process. None of this has been formalized. We've not had a formal meeting yet to determine how we're going to move forward on the CARES Act and the money that's been earmarked for our county. We have asked the question to DOLA, Department of Local Affairs, who is handling the entire grant process, if nonprofits were going to be eligible, and she couldn't answer that. And so the DOLA is trying to determine who's going to be eligible and what kind of expenses are going to be eligible. So certainly it's not going to hurt to ask. If the town or the county expends dollars to help you out, then it would be incumbent upon them to know if that's going to be a reimbursable item or not. Certainly you're welcome to make a request to the commissioners as any other organization the community can and has, requesting some funds to help you out in your organization. We deal with that sporadically when those requests come to us. So I would say on behalf of the commissioners, you're welcome to do that as well.
You bet, and I got a comment on that too.
Go ahead, sir.
We have a task force, an economic recovery task force that's supposed to be helping people in understanding that. And I've already asked them to go and talk to each of the businesses and the nonprofits to understand the problems. Part of that is there are variances that already have been approved for events. So keep that in mind, John. You can have an event, you can have a pancake dinner at some point, and there are criteria to do those. I think the event size is like up to 100 or whatever it is. So and you can have it be 200 if it was in two different places at the same time. So there's lots of ways. I'm just letting you know you need to talk to the economic task force guys that are very well aware of that. And I've asked him to talk, so I'll send you a phone number for Charles Bogle, and he's the guy that's leading that right now. And then
Okay.
And that should help as well. And the CARES Act thing that Tom and Jay have discussed is very, very viable, and I think it's probably, we'll see what DOLA says. But thanks, John.
I appreciate that. Thank you for your suggestions, and I will take the suggestion of drafting the letter both to the county and to the town of Westcliff.
Thank you. Yeah. Have you read the governor's order 20-28? And then
No, I have not.
Okay, the amendments that followed. So they did amend that order to set some numbers of participants for indoors and outdoor activities. So I'm assuming that when you say you're not having the pancake breakfast, that your board has made that decision, correct?
And largely, like many of our organizations here, we have folks that are at risk, and asking them to step up as they do every year, and it was just very difficult to try to find even volunteers to work these events.
Understood, and certainly I admire your group for taking that stand to do what's right for the community's health and safety. And really the whole idea behind the CARES Act was to financially assist at least businesses. There's not been a definite answer on nonprofits, but at least to give assistance to counties that have been impacted by the coronavirus, and certainly this would be an activity that probably has been. So I think it's going to come down to get a determination from the U.S. Treasury Department and the DOLA, Department of Local Affairs, to find out if and to what extent nonprofits are going to be eligible. So that doesn't mean you couldn't request money from the towns or the county. It may be that it's not an eligible expense, but then they would just have to make their decision on whether or not to move forward with helping any organization out, including yours. So appreciate it. Thanks for your public comment. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on. There is another public comment opportunity at the end of the meeting. Unfinished business, gentlemen? Did we go through that? I have none.
I have none, sir.
None.
Thank you. New business, we'll allow public comments for each item to be voted on here. And it's the chair's responsibility to make sure those comments are germane to the action item that is under discussion. So the first item of business review and the vouchers and sign the checks. I would say that today obviously is the 29th. Normally we'd be meeting on the last business day of the month, but tomorrow's the election day. So we're meeting today, and these checks will be going out tomorrow.
Mr. Chairman, I've reviewed the vouchers, and I move that we approve the vouchers for the month of June.
I'll second it.
We move to second to approve the vouchers as presented, the June 2020 vouchers as presented. Discussion. I had a couple questions, got those cleared up. No big thing there. Anything else, gentlemen?
They look good to me.
They look fine.
Okay. Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of approving the vouchers as presented for June, say aye. Commissioner Kanda?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Flower votes aye. Motion carries. We will initial these real quick and get those to Ms. Donna. Hopefully I'll get them all and we won't skip one. Yeah, there's some start. Next item of business is consideration of ratification of the signing of the 2020 EMP grant, the Emergency Management Program grant. Ms. Nichols came in. We do this every year, and she needed that document to be sent in. It was between commissioner meetings, and so I did sign that. We have the signature letter in our board packet. And so I would move that we ratify signing of the EMP.
I move we ratify signing the EMPG grant application or acceptance. And a letter of acceptance, and it did look a nice letter.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, but I have discussion.
Okay. I guarantee you there will be discussion. Been moved and seconded to ratify the signing of the EMPG grant. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
my comment I make completely respectfully. I don't mean this as a chastise, but we do this every year. I'm certain it comes in a timely manner. Why is it in such a rush that you have to sign it without the board approval and then ratified. Why was it not presented at a regular meeting?
Okay.
I find that not truly appropriate. I appreciate you taking care of it. I recognize it's routine, but it's not appropriate.
Okay. Yeah, I can't answer that exactly. I didn't ask. I think probably, I shouldn't even say actually. So if I do, I would probably be speaking out of school. So I will certainly pass your comments on. Yeah, had it been something totally out of the realm and that we had not done in the past, and that it wasn't a grant for $38,000, I might have responded differently.
Well, let me suggest something. We know this on some things like this that are routines. We're using that word loosely. When you got it, was there any reason why we couldn't have gotten it at the same time and understood it? Maybe had some email questions. We don't have to meet every time if we agree. We could ask Clint. Is there a process that we can use, Clint, that keeps us out of hot water from talking to each other?
Right. Yeah, I think Commissioner Prince's point was if Meredith had this earlier,
Yeah.
could she have gotten it to us earlier and we could have dealt with it at a meeting or at least looked at it? Certainly with the pandemic going on, I'm willing to allow some grace and leeway, but your point's well taken, sir. Further discussion?
Just real quick. So the deadline was when? If you hadn't assigned it, we'd have lost it. Is that true?
That was my understanding.
Don't know the effective date.
Trying to look at if there was a deadline. I don't think Meredith is on the call this morning. Go ahead. Sir.
Mr. Chair, I really don't have a problem with this taking place. It's the process, kind of like we talked about the
Right.
process of putting things on the agenda. I would really like this tightened up. Now, if it is something that truly needs to be done, and we don't
It's
have...
an emergency.
Exactly. That was the word I was going to use. If it's something that needs to be done and we don't have time, certainly we're going to take care of business the way we need to take care of it. So it's just process that I'm concerned about.
Understood. If we don't keep our eye on the processes, the next thing you know, we're running helter-skelter, just like the agenda thing. So I acknowledge what you're saying.
Thank you, sir.
Any further discussion? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote on ratification of the signing of the EMPG grant for $38,000. All in favor say aye. Commissioner Kanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Prince?
Aye.
Commissioner Flower votes aye. Motion carries. That signature has been ratified. Next item of business is Garden Club discussion of maintenance of the county buildings. I believe we have some folks on the line pertaining to that. We also have a document that was provided to us so that we could have an idea of what the discussion was about. So with that, I would turn the floor over to whoever chooses. Elaine, if you're the spokesperson or whoever is, go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Ing Munden, co-president, along with Elaine Chavanon of the High Altitude Garden Club. Thank you for giving me time to speak to you today. And I wanted to start by saying for approximately 20 years, the Garden Club has maintained the gardens of the courthouse grounds. Over this time, our club, volunteer membership, and our circumstances have changed. We're now carefully evaluating our community involvement, our volunteer numbers, and time allotments. So we're offering a proposal to you today appropriate to our membership for the courthouse garden maintenance going forward. I think you were emailed a comprehensive document for review. I'm not sure you've had time to review that. It is a 7-page document. Is that the one that you have in front of you, or the proposal in brief?
I have the documents in front of me.
I do too, and I've read them. Very comprehensive.
I had it. I looked at it. I don't have them right now. You got it on the email there. Give me the date. I'll pull it back up.
Okay, it was, I believe, emailed to you on Saturday the 27th at 1:41
Yeah, I'll find it. You
p.m.
don't need to send it.
And the source would be the highaltitudegc@gmail.com. And I will just briefly go over the items that are contained in that document. So going back to our proposal, which we feel is appropriate for the Garden Club would like to return the area of maintenance to the courthouse maintenance that is adjacent to the facade. In the in-depth portion of this proposal, we've included a bid for conversion of this area to an easily maintained area so that it will no longer be blooming and garden area as such, but something more appropriate perhaps to a municipal building. The second point of our proposal is the walkway borders, the garden areas that are lining the sidewalks north and south, approaching the courthouse from 6th Street, will remain the responsibility of the High Altitude Garden Club and will continue the maintenance, the planting, and the care for those areas. There is a third garden area of concern that is south of the south sidewalk. We in the club refer to this as a circle garden. In the past, it's been referred to as a high dry garden, which, as I understand, was a suggestion of a former county agent to create this garden. Over time, this garden has changed, so now we are carefully reviewing it, and the responsibility of that area will be determined now by a number of factors. And this might be a good time to mention the lack of irrigation and the condition of the entire South Lawn area, which of course has an effect on this particular garden area. So moving forward to the next part of our proposal in brief, the Garden Club is working to define our project involvement in each of our projects throughout the county and throughout the towns. And so today we would like to request the establishment of the following 3 guidelines for ongoing club maintenance of the courthouse garden area. We request first that the courthouse will provide easy access to water with a hose from an outdoor faucet to the areas we maintain from May to September. This aids us in new planting as well as weeding and general cleanup when we work. The second item we're requesting today is that the walkway gardens, which are maintained by the High Altitude Garden Club, would be regularly watered by courthouse maintenance person using whatever system is available and is being used to water the lawn areas. And the third request we have today is that the club would like reimbursement from Custer County funds for mulch as needed for the walkway borders. This would not exceed $200 annually, but would help us as we budget for our community projects. We'd very much like the commissioners to consider these 3 items either as an MOU, but preferably as an action item. And then in following, we would, of course, like by the end of our discussions today, to encourage a motion to enact these requests. If you have the in-depth proposal, we can discuss it or give you time to review it, meet you on site, however you wish me to proceed. The complete proposal, which I emailed to you, is 7 pages long, but mostly contains pictures and sketches which outline and define each area of the courthouse gardens and what we are proposing for those areas.
Okay, thank you. A couple questions I have, I guess. Number one, if you want the county staff to water the plants, why do you need access to water?
Okay. I'm sorry, could you please restate your question? You were breaking up on this connection.
Yeah, number 2 on your brief says that you would like the courthouse maintenance people to regularly water the garden areas. Why do you need access to a water hose, which we have, by the way? I'm just asking.
Well, when we do a new planting, we usually water that area as we plant and as we clean up from the beginning of spring to now. It's virtually impossible to weed and do the maintenance that we need to do without access to water. It aids in cleaning up, and we have in the past had to carry water in containers so that when we put in new plants, we're able to water them, since, of course, the sprinklers are not on while we're working, and we don't know the regularly scheduled sprinkling time for the lawn.
Okay, the lawn's being watered by hand, so there is not a regularly scheduled sprinkling time. There is a hose bib on the west side of the courthouse building, the county building, which I'm sure you're aware of. The problem with that currently is it is susceptible to freezing because it is not a drain back style. I've got some questions from the other commissioners. Go ahead, Commissioner Prince.
Mr. Chairman, it's really not a question. First, I really appreciate what the Garden Club does, not just for the courthouse, but for the entire community. It's a wonderful process what they do. I'm going to recommend that we put this on one of the 2 first week of July agendas to discuss. And one of the things I'd like to add on to that agenda, if I can, we have saved a significant amount of money on the water line to the Saddle Club. Maybe it's time for us to consider using some of that money that we saved to put in that expensive sprinkler system that we've discussed previously. I think it's necessary that we have a sprinkler system. I think the money was earmarked for another water project, and it would fit the county real well. It would, since we've already allocated it for one and we have a significant savings, to me it just makes sense. So I'm suggesting we put this on an agenda for first week in July. Not only the garden club issue, which I personally don't have any issues with at all, but I'd like to include also the conversation of a sprinkler system for the county.
Okay. Yeah, I think we probably do need an agenda item pertaining to the sprinklers, which is really not germane to this item, so I think that's fine. We'll just stick that on the agenda.
Well, it kind of goes together because we're talking about watering the plants, and our personnel would do the watering, which I think is certainly appropriate. But I think, you know, it seems to just tie in together to me.
So I would ask Ms. Kelly if we can add consideration of a county building sprinkler system for July. I don't care which day, 7th or 8th, doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, either one. I'm fine with that, and it would make sense to, because we really can't vote to approve this today, or can we? Is it on the agenda as consideration? I thought it was just discussion. Yeah, so maybe we ought to include the garden club proposal for the 7th or 8th, and at the same time, and just take care of all of it at once. It's all about beautification, grass, foliage, flora for our building.
Yeah, under normal circumstances, this would not come before a vote today, Ms. Munden, because it's not on the agenda as an action item. It's for discussion only.
Okay. Would then it be placed on the agenda for July as an action item?
Yes.
As far as reimbursing us for mulch purchased for your gardens?
Along with the rest of the stuff, yes, in your proposal, I would
The whole plan.
assume so, yes. So I think, too, you know, we would...
I'm sorry, but your connection is once again unclear. And okay.
Yes, we will put it on the agenda.
I would like to ask you, when you do have time to review the entire proposal that we're sending you, or that we have sent you, that you especially give the last 2 pages, which are 3 photos taken last week of the area on the south side of the courthouse, because that directly impacts that south garden, and that is germane, I think, to the discussion, which may or may not include us, but hopefully it will, about the irrigation system.
Okay, yep, we see it every day we come to work, so certainly familiar with it.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, and then we will, I guess you will ask me to continue this discussion when you let me know when we appear in July.
We're fixing to do that right now, so.
Okay,
Gentlemen,
thank you.
what's your pleasure, July 7th or 8th?
Which one's got the less stuff now?
Well, I don't think there's much on either one.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it on the 7th, I agree.
Okay, July 7th, you'll be on the July 7th agenda. We'll put consideration of the High Altitude Garden Club's proposal.
Thank you very much. In the meantime, if, as you're reading the document sent, if there are questions, please know that I and a number of Garden Club members are available to either meet on site and discuss specifics of the proposal.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it would have been nice to get a list of contact people. I don't know who all is involved in the Garden Club, so.
I will make sure that I email that to Kara, if that's okay, or I can email it to all of you.
Either way is fine. If you send it to Kara, she'll send it to us. So if you want to just send it to the commissioners, that's fine.
Okay, I
Thank
will
you.
do so immediately.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Appreciate your time and interest. Thanks for what you do.
Thank you.
Hello? Hello? Hi, it's Ray.
Hey, Ray, it's Ed. How are you?
I'm doing well, Ed. Yourself?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Ray.
Gentlemen, I need to remind you we're in the middle of a Board of County Commissioners meeting. Are you calling in for public comment?
No, this is... No.
Okay, so you may either have the wrong number or
Yeah.
something's going on because you are speaking to the county commissioners during the meeting.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that, guys. We'll Ray, we'll hang up and I'll reach out to you personally.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks. Bye.
Sir Roger, I'm here.
Vernon?
Yes, sir. I'm figuring out which one is not supposed to be here.
That's fine. Would you just mute everyone, please? We can unmute. When
Everyone is muted.
Thank you. Next item of business, discussion with the sheriff of the ramifications of Senate Bill 2217. While we're waiting for him, Commissioner Prince, you have something?
I was just going to ask, while we're waiting for the sheriff to show up, can we take a quick recess?
By consent, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Well, I'm glad everybody's doing fine over there, wherever they are.
Lord, how random was that, huh?
I know, really?
discussion with the sheriff on ramifications of Senate Bill 20-217. I think we'll wait for a minute, and then I don't want to move on to public comment because some public comment may have to do with that item of business, so we'll hold off on that as well. Haven't heard back from him yet. Can you give him a call? Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. Clint, if you want to do that. Right.
I'll say again that I'm speaking while we're waiting for Shannon to get here concerning the new legislation, Senate Bill 20-217. The immediate concern is the requirement that started as of June 19 for all law enforcement agencies to keep information regarding any law enforcement contact. And Shannon has developed a one-page form that gets the basic information, and I've advised him I think that's sufficient. I've seen forms that have been developed by other counties that run 9 or 10 pages, and the record-keeping requirements are just going to take away so much time for the law enforcement officer. If the officer that makes the contact has to also fill out the form, and it appears that Shannon is contemplating hiring somebody who would glean all that information from the written reports and do that, but it would require, according to Shannon, another part-time employee just to get that information. And then there's no means of transmitting that to the state. The sheriff's office would have to save all this information. They don't even have a uniform format as to how they're going to do that. But eventually it all has to be transmitted to the state and kept in records for No, well, for right now, they don't send it to the state, I think, until January 1 of 2020, 2023, as I recall. But it has to be maintained here somehow in, I'm sure, electronic form. And the other, thing that concerns me more than anything else reading through this statute is the requirements on what a law enforcement officer is expected to do during a contact if the contact escalates into a situation where there's the possibility of serious bodily injury or death to either the officer or somebody else. It's almost like the officer has to whip out a checklist and go through, am I allowed to do this? Can I do that? It's going to be very discouraging for new law enforcement officers to actually take any action. And then in situations, if there is, and this isn't probably going to apply here, but if there's some kind of a protest going on that could escalate, they're prohibited from using the usual means of trying to control the people, including rubber bullets or use of tear gas or anything else without jumping through a lot of hoops first. There's just a lot of restrictions. I think it's going to have a lot of people say, I don't even want to try to go into law enforcement anymore, and I'm going to lose my qualified immunity, if they do something in good faith that turns out not to have been proper. They could still end up being sued for it. It's imposing. Oh, and of course the other thing is the cameras, the body cameras that everybody is going to be required to wear. And Shannon wants to talk about that because his posse members are non-certified law enforcement officers, but when they're acting in a law enforcement capacity, which to me includes directing traffic, providing security during parades, things like that, that they also would probably have to wear body cameras. And there's not any funding coming from the state. The statute just suggests they can apply for grants to get these additional cameras they need from Homeland Security, I guess, but it's causing a lot of headaches for law enforcement across the state. And tomorrow there is a Zoom meeting that I'm going to monitor, which will be the county attorneys and the Colorado District Attorneys Council, where they're discussing this, and there are also some PowerPoint presentations being prepared by some county attorneys, and as soon as they're made available, I'll get those and share them with Shannon for training purposes with his own officers. And I guess that's about all I have to say until Shannon gets here.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at his contact sheet, and I emailed him back a couple of my thoughts about it. I'll voice those publicly as well. This whole piece of legislation is just ludicrous. Perceived demographic information on the subject. It's about the most asinine requirement in this legislation. What qualifies any law enforcement officer to make a determination on somebody's lineage?
Why?
And what difference does it make?
And I know
Does it make a difference whether they're white or black or Asian or other, for crying out loud? If you're going to stop somebody for a violation, you stop them. It doesn't matter what color their skin is. It's just stupid.
Well, we have an undersheriff, I believe.
Good. So, yeah, that got me kind of worked up. The other thing I thought was, sorry. May I finish? The other thing I thought was a little disconcerting about the whole contact sheet. Not only about the documentation and the data that is in here, but is it going to be housed here, which Commissioner Kanda asked, and is it going to be forwarded on? Is it just going to be another effort of bureaucratic waste? Nothing would ever be used unless somebody wanted to file a lawsuit in wrongful death or whatever. I just struggle with this whole thing. Obviously, it's legislation, so I thought we became a red flag county over the whole gun seizure thing, and I couldn't help but thinking maybe we ought to have a discussion about being a red flag county pertaining to this. I don't know.
Well, we're a Second Amendment sanctuary county, I think, is what we voted to do, and I'll wait for Shannon for that discussion.
Yeah. The other thing I did mention this to Shannon in an email. On the subject of identifying whether the subject was a male or a female.
New York recognizes 30 plus
there you
genders
go.
now. Yeah.
There you go, and I'll guarantee you Colorado probably recognizes more than male and female. So why ask? It just irritates me. Morning, sir. Your stuff irritates me. I might as well tell you that up front. Good morning. So we are on the agenda item of a discussion with the sheriff about Senate Bill 20-2017. We are under 6-foot restrictions in here, so
Just take this and hold it and talk to us.
All righty then.
yeah, maybe.
I can go back here, yeah, I don't have any problem. All right.
Be sure it's turned on and speak into it. Okay, very good.
Can you hear me, Clint?
Yep.
How's everybody doing?
Thanks for asking. So, floor is yours, sir. Clint kind of took a few minutes while we were waiting to share his perspectives and a little bit of his conversations with you and what his plans are to participate in a Zoom conference tomorrow.
Okay. So I believe I attached 3 things for 3 documents. That contact sheet, which I believe is what you guys were visiting about a little bit there.
Correct.
So that's the data that we're now required to collect on anybody that we come in contact with on a law enforcement type contact. So anything from that has to do with law enforcement, you know, from traffic stops to investigations to you name it when it comes to law enforcement stuff, and that really makes it complex, you know. And so let's say that that Kara backs into Clint at the grocery store, and
I wouldn't mind.
and Jay and Tom and Bill here also all are witness to this accident. So I respond, I contact these guys, then each one of you, I talk to each one of you because you saw what happened. I have to fill one of these out for every single one of you.
And you feel qualified to determine whether they're white, black, Hispanic, Asian, or other, apparently.
You have to ask.
So you notice there's an other on there, right? So it's my opinion, and I've told my deputies that you will never catch me circling white, black, Hispanic, Asian. I won't do it. Because, as we all know, the demographics in Custer County are, I mean, I'm going to throw a number out there, 98.5% white. So let's say over the course of a month, I'm just running traffic, and I contact 4 black individuals for speeding. You know, I write 100 tickets, but 3 of them were for black or Hispanic, and I put that on there, right? That's a red flag that I'm picking on, because 3% of all my contacts, and yet only 0.5% of the population is that, and so I'm not doing it. That's me. Now, I'm not telling my deputies that they shall or shall not do it in any specific way. The form is filled out the way the state says that I have to fill it out.
Is this per legislation? This stuff was required to be on your contact sheet?
Yes, sir. So I'm not doing it. Now, again, I can't tell the deputies. If they infer that a person's Hispanic and they want to put Hispanic, I'm not going to deter from that. But, yeah, you know, it doesn't really do any good to complain about it because it is what it is at this point. But as long as I've been a cop, you've never profiled. You don't profile. That's not, the law doesn't care what color you are, where you're from, what language you speak. We don't care. It's the law. And now they're forcing us to do this. And so I think it's...
So now, in Colorado, the law does care, right? Or we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Evidently. Evidently that'd be correct. Or at least the legislators that passed the bill care. They do care. But again, let's
We try to focus on the positive.
Well, yeah, there's no reason you can do it. I mean, I can only see one real reason why you focus on differences between people, and that is because if we're all together, then we're much stronger than if we're separate. But I won't go any further than that. So that's required now. In the second form that I gave you, which was basically the impacts to the county and how it's going to affect the county. Because of this, so you can imagine how many of these we're filling out every day already, right? The challenge is, and I believe that that's the first item on this effect on the county, is that this is a bunch of data. This is going to be a bunch of data, and right now the state has they don't have a system in place to track this data. Nor do any law enforcement agencies, because we didn't track that before. We didn't track who we contacted. Yes, when you arrest someone and you do arrest paperwork, that information's on there, and we go usually by their identification, you know, their driver's license or whatever, to fill that out, but it's not tracked. And so my initial plan is that those little contact sheets, we were going to just collect those up, and we were going to fill up banker boxes, and then I was going to send those to the state, because the bill does not specify that agencies have to provide that data electronically. It just says that they have to provide the data. But you and I both know that we'll probably get it returned back to us and say we have to provide it in a specific format, in a specific manner that can be electronically entered into their database. I predict that the state will have a similar system like we have for NIBRS right now, which is crime reporting, and we report that, and it goes into the Department of Justice database for nationwide. So I'm sure it's going to be a uniformed reporting system like that at some juncture. I just don't know when that's going to happen. So the challenge becomes, how do we get that data entered? And I don't really know the specifics because we don't have the program in place yet. But as you can imagine, I mean, I'm going to have somebody that's manually entering all that takes these contact sheets and manually enters them. Because
that means what, Shannon? Scanning them, typing them, could be anything.
It's probably going to be manually typing them in, Bill, and unless they come up with a mobile data app or something, you know. But of course, we don't always have mobile data wherever we're at throughout the county. So it's a complexity. To tell you that I have a solution on exactly what we're going to need right now would be disingenuous, because we don't know what it looks like still. We just know what we have to collect, but we don't know how. There's no specificity in how we collect it or how we store it. And so right now we're just taking these forms and we're trying to catalog them by month and just keep them basically in a box, you know. So we'll have a little bit in June because we're only doing it for a few months, or a few weeks in June, and then it'll be July, August, September. And I think we're going to have to just wait and see on this, but I'm hoping we have an answer closer to the end of the year before the budget talks start, because so that all of us will know what it's going to look like and what it's going to require, and you know, if it's going to be man-hour intensive or if it's going to be a simpler solution. I just don't know.
So Shannon, a quick question. Currently, is the Sheriff's Department literally writing these contact forms out longhand, or do you have those on a computer that the patrol deputies have in their vehicle?
Yeah, so they have this form that I showed you here. It's a half sheet. So we printed it off in a full sheet. They tear it in half. Yeah, and then they carry 50 in their patrol vehicle, and every time they make a stop, see, because this is all inferred, right? So this is, you know, they don't just fill it out off of somebody's driver's license because it doesn't have their name or anything.
Correct.
So they're just, yes, they're longhand filling them out. They're just circling, and you can tell by the way I made it. I try to make it as simple as I can, anywhere where I could just circle or a check box, so that they weren't having to write a lot, so that it only takes, you know, maybe a minute to do. Where the time comes in, you know, is like duration of contact. Well, you usually have to go back to the CAD sheet, especially if you're on something that's longer than just a minute or two. If you're on something for 25, 30, 40 minutes, you're going to have to go back to the CAD sheet because you can't keep track of that. So then they have to go back to the office, and then they have to, you know, and they're generally going to be writing a report anyway, so they're there, but then they have to bring those in. They have to look and fill out the specifics on some of those type of things.
Remember how many they talk to. You get in a bind where you got a lot of people, a lot of things happening. You don't know who you talk to.
Right. Yeah. And yep, I could see if it were 2 minutes or 30 minutes, but
thought it was very onerous, but I have a couple of questions. It requires, let me find the wording, officers to do this. Is the posse considered an officer,
They are.
even though they're not certified by the state as a peace officer?
Yeah. So they were specific in the bill to that even non-certified
Yeah, I saw
quote
that.
unquote peace officers like detention deputies. In a lot of jails that you'll have a mix where some are certified and some are not. In our jail, we don't have any that are certified, but they fall under that as well, and so the posse
Got it.
falls under that as well.
And it looked like if there's a altercation of some sort, the public has a right to see the video or the cameras.
Yes.
You have a 21-day period to give them that. Do you store that information now, or what happens with the body cams that your deputies currently have?
So we retain all video for at least a minimum of 90 days. So we follow the guidelines specified in the Colorado. I just had the actual title of it in my head until we started. It's required by a Colorado records retention schedule, and so the state of Colorado has minimum requirements. For example, if I were to just contact you on a traffic stop, give you a warning, you go on your way, the state of Colorado recommends that you maintain that for a minimum of 90 days, which we do on something like that. Then the deputies, every one of their body camera, the new body cameras that we have, so they have an app on their phone as well. So like, let's say you and I have a contact, when we're done, they can go to their phone and they can label the contact. And on there, if they label a case number, let's say that I issue you a citation for, speeding. They put that on there. Now that in the program, that video is now automatically going to be stored for a minimum of, I believe it's 6 months. I'd have to look. I don't have it. So yes, it's just depending on the type of video and how it's cataloged. And then also, let's say that I gave you a warning for speed, which normally would be 90 days. But let's say you said something to me like, I don't appreciate you doing this, you're harassing me, and I'm going to complain. We'll put a note in there that there could be a complaint, and so then we automatically retain that for a longer period of time, so that it protects you as the citizen and the deputy as well. So yes.
Thank you.
Lots of data, as
Another
you can imagine.
question on that same line. On TV, I heard that they were requiring body cameras not to be turned on or off by the deputies. Well, this bill didn't have any other stipulations on the body cameras, did it?
Oh yeah.
What were to
Yes.
make similar?
So it has quite a few stipulations in there. One of the things that we have some heartache with. So as you can imagine, right? So body cameras are electric devices that suffer from malfunctions on their own, and then quite frankly operator error happens as well. I was wearing my body camera on the protest that we had. When I was walking, I bumped into somebody, turned my body camera on. I had no clue it was on for an hour and a half. It's just an accident, right? So they get turned on or off. They can. I mean, it has to be a little deliberate, but so the body camera footage, now there's stipulations in the bill. Let's say, for example, you and I get in an altercation and you end up with a bloody nose, or you're injured in some way whatsoever. If my body camera wasn't working, if I didn't properly activate my body camera before the altercation began, now according to this law, I as the officer are automatically it's automatically assumed, and Clint can give the proper, because I don't have it to memory, but it is assumed that I acted inappropriately, I'm automatically guilty because there was no active body camera footage. Doesn't matter what you did. I am now guilty. Which is going to, I'm just telling you already, there's a lawsuit that hasn't been dropped, but it's going to about that aspect because now there's no preponderance. I'm not assumed innocent until proven guilty. And so Jay said it, that's an onerous, that's disingenuous in its intent.
Can you turn your mic on, please?
Sir, thank you. What I was saying is, do you feel we're going to have a significant attrition of deputies? Because I'm concerned that if it was me, I would be very concerned to do this job in terms of you've taken away my limited immunity. You're putting the onus on me if there's an equipment malfunction. And this job is terrible in the first place. And I don't mean terrible in terms of what you do, but terrible in terms of at any given moment, your life could be in danger protecting yourself or someone else. I mean, this is a very difficult job. I'm worried about deputies turning around going, you know what? I think I'd rather do X, Y, and Z rather than be a deputy. I'm not taking this risk anymore. Do you think this is going to be the end of this result, the result of this? Sorry, I'm not asking for political.
No, I know, I
concerned
understand
about
what you're
this
saying.
thing.
I think where we're really going to see challenges. So, cops in general are pretty resilient about a lot of things, right? Just because, like you said, the nature of our job. I mean, one minute you're dealing with somebody that's super thankful and they appreciate what you're doing, and then the next minute you potentially can be talking to somebody that's calling you names and doesn't appreciate what you do, and so they kind of bounce. So I think officers, and when I say officers, you know, I'm talking officers, deputies, all law enforcement. I think that the ones that are in the job, I think by and large they'll probably hang tough because we don't do this job because we're going to get rich or that we're going to get a lot of accolades or anything like that. We do it because there's a duty to serve, and you know, people are going to roll their eyes, or some people do, but you really do. You do this because you love your community. But where I think the bigger challenge is going to come is convincing young people to come do this job because they see all of this and they're inundated. You know, the media doesn't talk about, I mean, you don't hear on the news about any of this challenges. That we already had a challenge of trying to recruit officers to come work and do this job now. Then you just added all of this on top of it. I think where we're going to find the challenge is that the folks that are leaving law enforcement, and it could be for many reasons, this on top of the fact that it's tough on your family, it's a tough life. How do you replace them? And I think that's going to be the big, so you're hitting on it. Yeah, this makes that steep hill even steeper.
Thank you. I hope the legislature reconsiders this.
I think we will see some changes to it. I think, you know, as I mentioned in here, so we rushed this through the legislature in 2 weeks. 140 proposed amendments to it in a 2-week period. They actually had to extend the session. They were supposed to close the session on Friday. Was that the 16th? 16th. They had to extend it through Saturday and then into Sunday so that they could get the last reading and the last amendments in place, just to get it in place. Governor signs it. And it wasn't the 16th, though. It was maybe the 12th. I apologize. But the timeline, nevertheless. And then so much of the bill, nothing goes into effect until 2023. So what was the rush on that? And I think it was more emotion than it was reason.
As I read it, it seemed like a knee-jerk reaction to what's going on nationally right now.
Right. Because I think, look, I haven't heard one police officer, not one, and I follow a lot of forums and stuff. Not one person justified what started this, with the George Floyd incident. No one, that was wrong, and he's going to go to prison for it, and that those officers are, and rightly so. I'll be the first one to stand up and say, lock them up. That was wrong. They shouldn't have done that. We all agreed with it. There's no officers are fighting accountability. We hold ourselves accountable, and so yeah, this just makes a tough job tougher.
Other questions?
So Shannon, is there anything you need to? Well, you're here. You asked to be here. Is there other deal?
So I wanted to bring up. So there were three of them. So you saw the memo that I put out to all my. It was attached as well that I put out to all my folks on some training. So we are required by September 1st of this year to have comprehensive training with all of our personnel on all the changes to the bill. So I included that only so that you can see what all we're doing. What we did, or what I did, was I sent this out, and then every one of my employees are going to print it off. They're going to write their name and sign that they have read through this and they understand it, and then we're going to put that in their personnel file just so that we have that. We're also working our the whole 11th Judicial District, but with the district attorney. She's trying to put some of that together. I know Clint's working with county attorneys, and so there's a lot of legal folks that are working together to get a more comprehensive training that then we can have an attorney do the training as well, so that we don't miss any little things, and we really get it through to our folks that there's some certain things that you really have to think about that you've been doing forever that you can't do anymore, or that you have to change the way you go about it. And so I shared that with you just so you can see the effects that it has on us. And this sucker is, I think, this was an highly abbreviated, and it was 13 pages. So that's the stuff we're going over. I did want to talk a little bit on your thoughts. As Jay alluded to, the qualified immunity, and it hasn't been eliminated. Originally, in the original bill, and you remember when I came and talked to you the first time, it was qualified immunity was completely eliminated. That has not been. That was added back in. Actually, the Attorney General chimed in on that as well. So wait a second here now. Everybody, all professions have qualified immunity. So they did change that a little bit. But one of the things I think that all local law enforcement will see in the governing bodies of those law enforcement agencies, whether they're counties or municipalities or whatever, is because now the bar has been set much lower for suing police officers, because now you can sue them for violations of their rights in state court instead of going to federal court, which is easier to do. But the problem, the challenge is now, in part of this bill is, and I don't want to get in the weeds too much. You guys cut me off if you don't want to hear this. But so, in criminal court, we have to prove a case with beyond or beyond a reasonable doubt. Sorry. So that's a high threshold, because we don't want to incarcerate and find people guilty when they aren't. But in civil court, it's a preponderance of the evidence. So if there's a 51% chance that you could have done something wrong, not that you did, but you could have, then they will rule in favor of the plaintiff, and you, the defendant, will lose. Well, this bill has now categorized that if a police officer is found guilty in civil court, they lose their post-certification, and it cannot be renewed. The state cannot go back and renew it. And so where we're going to find is that now if someone accuses me of doing something, body camera and all that, but and they take me to civil court, and you get a court with the jurors that are sympathetic to that individual, and they rule against me, I'm no longer a police officer.
The burden of proof drops significantly, and you're much more likely to be found, I don't want to use the word guilty, but responsible.
Right.
Which may lose you post-certification.
And so where I was going with that is so now because typically what will happen is, right, so somebody will accuse a police officer, it happens all the time across the country, of doing X, Y, Z. It's going to go to court, but then the city says, well, look, we have the potential that if we take this all the way to court, we could lose $100,000. But if we if we kick them 10 grand, they'll go away. Can't do that now, because if I as a police officer plead nolo contendere, which basically means, look, I'm not going to fight this, I lose my post certification. The only way a plea deal now can happen is if the municipality and the defendant somehow agree that, and Clint can probably knows this, or Jay knows this better than I, but you can come to an agreement on a settlement, but I, as the peace officer, are not at fault. There's a clear judgment that there was no fault by the peace officer, or those deals don't get made. And so I think what's going to happen is you're going to see all these defendants are going to be like, nope, I'm going to take this all the way to, because they know in civil court they're going to win. Because I don't know what the odds are, Jay or Clint may. In civil court, the plaintiff wins a lot. So now all these deals don't get made, and the officer can't settle, and the municipalities, unless they just they throw an officer to the wind, and they make a plea agreement without the officer's consent. So I think that's where the true cost is going to go up. I think you're going to see insurance skyrocket on those type of things. I could be wrong, but I just see a huge potential, and maybe Clint or Jay want to offer their thoughts on that.
And I don't know where CTSI is going to come down on this, what they're willing to do given this new potential liability.
And so that's where the posse falls in now, because CTSI currently covers the posse. Will they cover the posse? I think that's something that the conversation's going to have. And then if they don't, I'm sorry?
You can lose more help that way too.
Well, right. As I put in the email to you guys, I mean, we had 2,900 volunteer hours last year alone, which, that's 2 full-time employees with all that they do. And so, so where's that cost come in? One thing that I probably will be submitting for the budget, from a budget standpoint, is the office possibly providing some legal coverage for the deputies, specifically for the 17 that I have, or the 16 that I have over there at the sheriff's office, between my detention deputies, all that. Through CPPA, it's a $60 a year membership, and then $10 a month. So, it's I have the number here somewhere, but it's $3,200 a year, just to help them, so that if someone were to accuse them of something, that they would have some legal assistance there to help with getting advice and how to navigate through that, just because it's become so complex. So we can have further conversation about that down the road as budget stuff comes on. The big one is going to be body cameras. So as I told you guys before, a few weeks ago, when, well, it's been a month now, I guess, but so we signed a contract with Axon to buy the 12 body cameras that that all of us are wearing now. The total cost for that over a 5-year period was $58,000 and some change. Now part of that contract is that we got brand new cameras, and then in 2.5 years they replace all those cameras with new cameras, and then at the 5-year mark we get new cameras again. So it helps. It's all the maintenance. They're fully warranted all the time, but they're expensive.
All right, sir.
By this law, though, posse members have to have body cameras when they're in uniform and they're doing their. Well, we have 17 active members on posse right now. That's about $82,000 to do a contract similar to what we did with the folks over there. Well, we could find some cameras that are a lower cost. We could do that, and that may be exactly what we have to do, or what we do is we buy 4 body cameras for the posse, because they go out 2 at a time or 4 at a time at the rodeos and some of these other functions. But then we don't do parades. We don't do any parade duties. We don't do any big, so that the most that are ever working at one time posse members. But this is gonna be a huge financial challenge for us, because I don't know what I do if I don't have the posse. Like parades, I don't, because people don't honor barricades. We know that. The poor posse folks are out there having to babysit barricades because people drive around them, and so.
Well, I would guess in a lot of circumstances, those additional costs are going to have to be passed on to the promoters of the activities. Either that or scale way back on the services that the posse provides or the sheriff department provides.
Yeah, it's a huge.
I don't think we're going to be able to throw enough money at this, is what I'm saying. There may have to be
Right.
some other changes.
Yeah, I just don't think there's enough. We don't have enough money to throw at it. And so the posse's been talking. Bill Parker's here. Bill's one of our big volunteers. The posse does a lot of work for us, and we've had some talks about doing some PR campaigns and trying to get out there to see if we can't maybe raise some money for the posse to help fund some of this, and to do some things. And literally, I think it's going to come down to this is going to be a save the posse type function, because if we can't raise some funds, typically in a year we'll raise about $4,000 in donations for the posse through event coordinators, paying for events that they do, and then I'll do the spirit campaign and stuff. But yeah, it's gonna be a challenge.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your time. Yes, sir, Bill, go ahead.
Shannon mentioned that you put out a 13-page summary of this new legislation, and he mentioned the words read, understand, and practice. And I have read it and signed my name to it, but reading it is one thing. Understanding it and practicing it is something at a higher level. And so I'm looking forward to some very comprehensive training that Shannon also mentioned he and his team are putting together. You gentlemen, I know, are aware that posse is all volunteer. When somebody joins the posse, they're on their own hook to provide their equipment. And each member spends $1,000 or more to equip himself to be a fully functioning member of the posse. And this legislation, as I've read it and discussed it, and Shannon gave us a summary at the recent posse meeting, this moves our activities and some of our responsibilities as volunteers into that gray area between being a volunteer and being a post-certified deputy, such as wearing body cameras. And how this all leads to potential personal liability on the part of a volunteer posse member is troubling. And recruiting post-certified deputies, as Sheriff mentioned, will be extremely difficult. Recruiting posse members may be impossible. So,
And run the risk of a lot of your folks dropping out that are currently involved. So I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to subject myself to that. Why should I? I'm a volunteer. So.
Well, and I would also add, so from being the sheriff and my perspective too, there might just come a point where I have to look at my posse members and say, listen, I'm not willing to place you in a position to where you could be forced to do something and run great financial risk to yourself. And I may just be like, listen, we can't do this. And I mean, that's a pretty heavy burden, a heavy decision to make right now, because I don't want to put these great guys and gals in harm's way as posse, as volunteers, and yet I know that if I don't have those volunteers, I can't cover a lot of these things, and so yeah, this has been pretty tough lately, and I know there's been some specific talk among county attorneys on what do we do with posse and how does posse fall into this, and I'm hoping that from a legal standpoint we get some feedback too, to say, hey, listen, we recommend X or Y, just to help with that decision-making process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it begs the question by statute, Shannon. What do you have to do? Keep the peace. Right?
Yes, that's it. Technically, I don't have to respond to crimes.
That's exactly right.
By statute.
So,
by statute, you got to maintain a jail, keep the peace.
This kind of legislative bullcrap may force you into going back to the very basic and say, this is what we're going to do because this is all we can afford to do. And that's going to be a sad state of affairs, not only for our county, but for a lot of others. Anything else for Sheriff Byerly? Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Bill, thank you for coming over.
Thank you both.
I would also like to just thank Clint for his help and giving feedback on this as well. He's probably gotten a few panicked, frustrated emails from me, just at the whole process, not at any one.
Right.
Just so he's had to deal with me a little bit. So I appreciate Clint's calm demeanor. He doesn't seem to ever get fired up.
If anybody ever sees him do that, we need to put out a bulletin.
He may just be a duck, He's inside, he's
That's
just
right.
racing along, but outside, he's just calm as can be.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for the update. You bet. Thank you, Shannon. Okay, we'll move on. Anything additionally to come before the? Yes, fine. Items of business to come before the group, gentlemen.
I have nothing, sir.
Mr. Kanda?
Negative.
Nor do I. We'll move on. Public comment. Floor is open for any comments from the public directed to the commissioners.
Ask Vernon.
Vernon, do we have the phones unmuted?
Hold on one second.
Thank you. I'm assuming the same format. Yeah, and we'll be that way until we decide differently. Oh, sorry, we did talk about staff reports coming in one at a time. Sorry, thanks for asking that. Yeah, I thought Kelly had. We good, Vernon?
Yes, sir. The phones are unmuted. There's only one person left, a 9966 number.
Okay. Any public comment? Hearing none, we will move into an executive session. We will recess this meeting and move in to an executive session if that is the group's pleasure. Yes, that's what I'm asking for, if it's the group's pleasure.
I move that we suspend this meeting and move into an executive session for the purpose of receiving advice from our attorney regarding an SUP application.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to move into an executive session for the purpose of legal advice from the attorney. I don't believe this motion's debatable. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. This meeting is in recess, and we will move into executive session. Board of County Commissioners meeting will reconvene. Today is June 29th, 2020. The time is 11:55 a.m. The executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were Clerk to the Board, Kelly Camper, Administrative Assistant to the Board, Kara Evans, County Attorney, Clint Smith, Zoning Director, Jackie Hobby, Chairman of the Planning Commission, Vic Barnes, Commissioner Prince, Commissioner Flower, Commissioner Kanda. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record.
Mr. Chairman, I would state that. Mr. Chairman, I would state that during the executive session, the conversation started to go beyond the purpose of the executive session, but it was steered back. There was no prejudice involved. I've just pointed out that what we were here for was to discuss the specific legal issue, and after that, the topic discussion stayed on point. So, as county attorney, I am satisfied that there weren't any violations during the executive session.
Thank you, sir. And for the record, Commissioner Prince, Commissioner Flower also indicated that they believe that the discussion was starting to migrate away from the stated purpose, and those were dealt with and brought back to, I think, everyone's satisfaction that we got back on topic.
I agree, and I also said the same thing.
And Commissioner Kanda. Okay. Any further statements, Attorney Smith, about staying on task, or are you good?
No, I would state as a county attorney, I would state that the executive session, which was not recorded for the purpose of me providing legal information and advice to you, did stay on topic, and ultimately the discussion was exclusively for the issue that I wanted to bring up to you. So I'm satisfied it was appropriate under the Colorado Open Meetings Law.
Thank you, sir. If there are no other concerns to be stated for the record pertaining to the executive session, we will move forward with the next agenda item. Commissioner Prince.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we authorize our legal counsel, Clint Smith, to confer with the council concerning the SUP issue. And I also move that we place this.
One at a time, sir.
I'm sorry. One motion? I'm sorry. Okay, that's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moving to second to authorize the county attorney to communicate with the Sund attorney pertaining to the special use permit, the pending special use permit. Is that adequate, sir?
Thank you, yes.
Discussion. Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Commissioner Kanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Prince?
Aye.
Commissioner Flower? Aye. Motion carries. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we put this issue, the recommendation that was made from the Planning and Zoning Commission, back on the agenda. Which one is the lighter day?
7, I think it was.
On July 7th, for us to consider the recommendation that will be forthcoming.
I'll second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to add to the July 7th agenda consideration of the planning zoning recommendation of approval for the Sund SUP.
Second. No, we had a second.
I seconded it.
Seconded it.
Discussion. Is it the Sund SUP or Three Peaks Ranch?
It's in the son's name.
Son
That's
family
what I
name.
thought. That's the name of their ranch, but I think the application.
Business?
The property
Oh,
owners.
I'm not denying that. I'm just asking about the application.
Jackie said the property owners are Mr.
Or
and
the
Mrs.
sons.
Sund, and they're the ones.
Businesses don't apply, property owners do, correct? Yeah. So I think the Sund attorney is the accurate description there. Further discussion? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of placing the SUND SUP, the Planning Commission's recommendation on the SUND SUP for July 7th, say aye. Commissioner Kanda?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Flower? Aye. Motion carries. July 7th. In the normal context of the flow of the agenda, gentlemen, are you okay with that by consent?
Absolutely.
Placement on the agenda, wherever it is. Kelly, you good? If it's the third item, that's the third item
Wherever
we
it
deal
is, you
with.
bet.
Okay,
Yes,
very
sir.
good.
Can I add
Go ahead, sir.
one thing, please, Mr. Chairman? Can I ask either Kelly or Ms. Kara to make sure that the folks who have been heavily involved in this are notified that it is going to be back on that day, so that if they choose to be here for public comment, they're welcome to.
Okay.
And it'll be published too.
And
I understand, but
I know, I'm just making a public notice that it's going to be everywhere.
at the risk of being out of order, and I'll defer to council, I will move that the BOCC notify Mr. Sedmeyer that he will be acknowledged and given time during public comment and not on the agenda as a regular agenda item.
That's wholly appropriate to do it that way.
Sure.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to inform Mr. Sedmeyer that he will be recognized and given time during public comment and not be on the agenda as an irregular agenda item at the July 7th meeting. Discussion? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, should we consider limiting the amount of time that any participant in this discussion, including this gentleman or anybody else, has to state their public comment?
Okay, I think it's a great question. I'm not sure it's germane to the motion, but I would like for you to follow up with that after we deal with this motion, sir. You okay with that?
Sure.
All right. I certainly want to speak to that as well.
But it could have been part of the motion. I mean,
It could have, yeah, but it wasn't, so
fine.
it's
Or gonna
not.
be part of a motion
Any
that
further
day.
discussion? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote on informing Mr. Sedmeyer that he will be recognized in public comment and not on the agenda. Say aye. Commissioner Kanda?
Aye.
Prince?
Aye.
Commissioner Flower? Aye. Motion carries. Ms. Kara, would you handle that for us, please? Let him know that it was a motion in the meeting to set that up. Further discussion or items?
Mr. Chairman, I think we probably, in the essence of getting through our agendas and getting our business done, we should limit the length of public comment for any one individual to a specific time. I'll just throw out on the table maximum 10 minutes, but I'm certainly open to any discussion. Thank you.
So,
Did you move that?
no, it's not a
It
motion.
wasn't a motion, it was just a suggestion.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. We would be much better off doing that now versus doing it when there's 65 people on the phone and it seems like we're reacting instead of being proactive. I would disagree on your just suggested. I know you just threw a number out there on 10 minutes. Generally speaking, Robert's rules allow for comment 3 minutes, and then to make it a little simpler, everybody has an opportunity to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. You would not be allowed to speak again until everyone has exhausted their opportunity to speak once. So if everybody wanted to speak and you wanted to respond to something, the chair could rule you out of order and say you've used your 3 minutes or your opportunity to speak, either one. So you'll have to wait until nobody else has any discussion, then you could ask for to be recognized by the chair again. So 10 minutes is a long time to sit and listen over the phone to one person.
I think 3 is fine.
If they can't be succinct, I would recommend 3 minutes, but again, it's just a number.
Okay. I'm okay with 3.
So Chair will take that into consideration then at the beginning of the meeting.
That'll be fine.
And clarify that.
I would hope you'd make an exception address concerns that come to her attention.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't consider her public comment, I would consider her a staff report.
That's exactly what I
And
would
so we
say.
can handle that differently. I would ask that, Kelly, you put on the agenda, if by consent, gentlemen, are you okay with 3 minutes? Well, what I was thinking of, if we do it now, we can put it on the agenda.
I like putting it on the agenda so there's no surprises. Nobody thinks that we're trying to curtail
Yes.
someone's opportunity to speak.
Right.
And that ought to be right up here where it says public comment limited to 3 minutes. That should be a pat for all meetings.
Well, that would be a decision to be made by the
So to
Why
fin-
would it
finish
BOCC.
my-
Well, that's my meeting, and that's what we're voting for right now.
No.
That's
To
what it
finish my comment, I think we should have it 3 minutes and we're going to
says.
publish it on
Public
the
comment
agenda.
allowed on each item.
For the Sund SUP or no?
But
What?
any public comment at that meeting.
So are we having a little discussion here, or
Yeah,
is there a
still-
motion, right? So my point is, that, to me, that's just, you're mentioning normal Robert's rules, and we're allowing public comment on each item, and we can say, limit, 3 minutes. Why not?
I'm agreeing with you.
Keep us going on
completely.
all
That's
our
what I'm
meetings,
trying to
not just
say.
this issue.
Yeah.
Put it on the agenda.
Yeah, I don't agree, but that's how it works. So I do agree that we should limit the comments pertaining to the Sund SUP to 3 minutes. Now, if we want to address both, then we can have that conversation. If you want to change the agenda to include 3 minutes from here on for anybody,
I don't know,
that's a whole nother conversation. I thought we were talking about the Sund SUP.
Let's do it for the
Limit to the
Sun
sun, that's
SUP.
fine.
Let's give them
And then
notice
if you
ahead
want
of
to
time.
change it subsequent, we could certainly consider that in the board meeting.
Right. I'm fine with 3 minutes for the Sun, and we could just let the rest of it just sit for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, what's the whole purpose of trying to limit it? Because we anticipate
A lot.
lot of
a
people.
lot.
Right.
If somebody wants to comment on Shannon's thing, one person, is it fair to limit them to 3 minutes if they're the only person on the phone call? I don't know.
You can always
Just
say you got more than 3 minutes at the time.
I would almost say either every comment always is 3 minutes, with the chair's prerogative to say, I'm going to suspend that for you only because you have something germane to say, but the rule is 3 minutes, and then you have the authority to suspend it. I like that because it fits Robert's Rules of Order. We follow Robert's Rules of Order. I believe Roberts allows you to give someone extra time if you choose, if the chair chooses to. Not your eye, Bill. If the chair chooses to.
I have to research that. I don't
I think
know
it
that,
does.
but
we
the
can
other
discuss.
thing that would go along with that then is the right of second speech. We would have to enforce that. You cannot jump on public comment and say, well, let me respond to that. No, not until everybody has had an opportunity to speak. I mean, if you're going to do one, you got to do the other.
It just
So-
FYI, in Westcliff, Kathy Rice has a timer, and when it bings, you're done.
Right. Yeah, and so that would, we haven't talked about process yet, but if that's what we want to do on the SUP is 3 minutes, then I would ask Ms. Kelly to be prepared to be a timekeeper for us. I can't do it as chairman, I'll get lost. So is that okay? Would you mind doing that? I appreciate it. So, are you gentlemen in agreement by consent that we need to put the 3 minute time limit on the agenda before the meeting starts?
Yeah, I am, sir.
Yes.
Okay, as am I. So when we get, yes, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. Here's a great question then. So that public comment it's an action item, so we would ask for public comment prior to voting. What if they want to comment after that, at the end of the meeting? Are we going to adhere to the 3 minutes because it pertains to the Sund SUP, or does that go away with the vote?
I don't
it's
want to
over.
stifle anybody's opportunity to speak.
Well, they'd still have an opportunity to speak.
Well, I mean,
Are we going to
after
hold
the
them to
vote,
3 minute limit?
Yes. I think 3 minute limit on anything that has to do with this particular SUP.
Regardless of where it occurs on the agenda? Because it could be during the public comment at the very beginning.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So
Or
they
at
used
the
it 3
That's
minutes at the beginning and then 3 minutes again at the end. I don't have an issue with that. I'm fine. If someone wants to speak at the end for 3 more minutes, I'm fine with
Yeah.
that, personally.
So I would guess the chair would be incumbent upon then making a statement at the beginning of the first public comment. If your comments have anything to do with the SUND SUP, you need to hold those until we get to the
That's right.
discussion and public comment of the SUP itself. Okay, good. Okay, very good. So we've got that matter taken care of. We've got July 7th. Right now, do you know what order that is? Because I know people will be asking.
Well, there's already one thing on that agenda, so that would be the fourth thing.
The SUP would be the fourth thing on the agenda, okay. Because of the nature of the whole SUP thing, when would you project a pending agenda to be out? Because I know I'm going to get a phone call this afternoon and want to know when that agenda is going to be available.
And I have a question on that process. Do we still have 2 websites up and active? Because
No.
Okay, and there's people that have been calling me. I can't find the agenda, and I don't know what they're looking at. Is it obvious? Is it very user friendly now? Because yeah, I know it was.
Okay. All right, anything else to come before the board?
Other than adjourning, I move we
Well,
adjourn.
No, sorry.
Huh?
Additional items of business is what I'm asking.
I have not, sir.
Okay, I'll take care of the rest of it. Public comment. Yes. Go ahead, Jackie.
I anticipate at least 4 to 5 of the people that I've been in contact over the issue coming to the meeting. All of them are, one of them's coming from out of state, 2 of them are coming from out of town. I think it would be a benefit to everyone if, I know it's a pain, to give a time.
Okay. Go ahead, sir, and then I've got a
My
comment.
concern is, I'm not sure I want those people in here. I mean,
No, it's a telephone. She just.
oh, telephone.
Well, they may still want to know about what time they should call in. Your questions are legitimate, but I was going to follow up with number 1, let's make a decision. We've already said we're going to continue the format of live commissioners and appropriate personnel and staff, and then teleconference and Zoom. Is that by agreement? Commissioner Kanda, you agree with that?
Yep.
Okay. So that's the other thing we're going to have to make sure everybody understands. They're not going to be allowed to walk in here.
You know, that's not a bad thing to just put on the website when you post the agenda. It says it's limited because.
Right.
I
And
understand.
we kind of do that in a way because we post a teleconference number, but somebody from Denver, i.e. their attorney, may not know that's what that really means.
People were showing up to talk to us.
Right.
For now.
Yeah.
you see.
Yeah.
Personal attendance is limited. You cannot come. You must dial.
Yeah. It's not limited. It's not allowed, right?
That's what I mean. You must dial.
So,
Participate.
So Jackie, I don't know how to answer your question really. Miss Jackie?
Did you resend
It's
your
the
question?
it's the 4th item on the agenda.
I'm not comfortable putting a time on. I don't want to feel like I'm
Yeah.
rushed. And any other item, you know, it's important to you, you'll just have to
Yeah.
sit and wait.
We used to have times on there.
Yeah. Okay.
We used to have projected times.
Yeah, and we took them off because we couldn't
them off.
adhere to them,
That's
could we?
right. Couldn't do it.
So a couple other things then. Public comment. Patrick, did you have something, sir? Oh, okay. Yeah,
Okay.
public comment would be perfect. Yep.
Perfect. Hold
Folks,
on a second.
sorry. I can't hear
Why don't you give
public
him a mic?
comment,
He's got to
so
make it public anyway. Talk into a mic somewhere.
there's one in the back, Patrick, back there on that box.
Sorry.
Sorry, Vic, I couldn't separate.
I hear it on, yeah.
Just say it loud.
All right. So just to go back to what I just said, I just came out of the
Get it close to your mouth.
to the Board of Education meeting, and with a lot of public comment, the 5 members of the Board of Education did unanimously vote to approve the Office of Behavioral Health grant, the $500,000 grant, and that is for the Substance Abuse Prevention grant, and that is for the Life Skills Management, the Life Skills curriculum. That is going to be also pending upon county commissioners. And so I came over here not knowing if you're still in a meeting or not, to discuss it either privately or publicly. Troy Baumgartner, he's still over there, I believe, but I know he's been in contact with a lot of you guys regarding this. So I think he was going to be on his way over here soon as well as Joe, Principal Virgilio.
Okay. Commissioner Prince, go ahead.
Will the Board of Education make a formal request to the commissioners for us to, what is necessary for us to get on board with your program?
I believe so. So the president would probably get with you. I know that the deadline is actually on July 1st. So I don't know if your vote would need to be on record. I would assume so.
Yes.
If you need to hold a special meeting. But I know that Troy Baumgartner, he'll be the one, if you have additional questions, if you need more details, if you have anything that you're unsure or unaware of, that he'll be able to provide those answers.
Okay, thank you.
Is he
So
coming now,
I
then?
wonder if,
I might be able to answer some questions too if you have some, but Troy knows more.
yeah, so you are going to be part and parcel as the administrator of that grant?
We do not have an administrator hired. I'm not sure if that'll be me. And
Yeah,
it'll be the health
sorry.
I don't know if the health teacher would be considered.
Right, because the grant is to hire somebody.
Correct.
But you are also going to be part of that
Yes.
administration of
Yeah,
that,
I have
right?
at least 8
Yeah.
hours per week paid for by that grant.
We didn't open up.
Pardon?
We're not on the call.
Oh, okay. So I think, gentlemen, probably our best bet would be to schedule a special meeting today. Now, we schedule a special meeting maybe for tomorrow,
We need 24 hours.
and then we'd have a 24-hour notice, and we could meet tomorrow and take action.
I agree.
Hopefully, Patrick was willing to convey that back to them, that we're willing to have a special meeting and take action, but you better have something in front of us, right? The Board of Education I'm talking about, not you. If the school board doesn't have something in front of us, then,
So the earliest we can get it on would be 1 o'clock
okay,
today. That's 24 hours. We could do a meeting at 1 tomorrow.
correct.
All
Or 12:30, whatever we decide.
Yeah, 12:30. Could be 12:30. Yeah, get it.
right. Yeah, I'm not sure if they're taking a lunch or not, but I can ask Troy and Joe if if they're still talking.
The conference has not started. If
But
you are the
they-
host, please enter your 4-digit host code to open
He
the
should,
conference.
he should.
If you are not the host,
But they did vote to go ahead with it.
Yeah, unanimously, all 5.
And so we, as Board of County Commissioners, believe then we need a request from them for us to act in whatever capacity.
Understand what our role is.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you see it, Mr. Prince?
Yes.
So I would move we schedule a special meeting tomorrow at 12:30.
I'll second it.
Tomorrow being June 30th.
12:30.
Ah, man.
It is election day, but,
It is what it is.
okay,
And none of my staff will, so.
can you appoint?
We'll make Kara the king.
I'm assuming it would last less than 15 minutes,
Oh,
but
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
If it's not gonna last, if you can promise me
No.
that it's.
No way. Kara can do it.
I ain't promising nothing, gal.
well, number one, I guess it's It's our meeting, but we're inviting somebody to come make a presentation to us, so it's hard to say. But I wouldn't anticipate it being any more than 15 minutes. I mean, I think they're going to say, yes, this is what we want you to do, and we decide to do it or not do it. But
I agree. I just, before we rubber stamp something, we just need to know what our obligations are. So I'm fine with 12:30 tomorrow.
Okay, further discussion?
Do you need a motion to that effect?
I moved and Bill seconded.
I apologize.
You were looking at your
I was looking at my calendar to see if
Calendar.
I could come.
That's what I'm saying. Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of scheduling a special BOCC meeting for June 30th, Tuesday, June 30th at 12:30 p.m. Say aye. Commissioner Kenda?
Aye.
Commissioner Prince?
Aye.
Commissioner Flower? Aye. Motion carries. Any further public comment? Now that we're back on the phone. Hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Commissioner Kanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Flower? Aye. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.